Hello, I am Patricia Van Haren, and I am the family law mediator and collaborative attorney in the Beverly Hills South Bay Vesta Hub. And I am here today with Josh Canova. Josh, will you give yourself an introduction?
I will. Thanks for having me today, Patricia. My name is Josh Canova, and I am the realtor in the South Bay Beverly Hills Vesta Hub, and glad to be here with you today.
Josh, can you let me know why you decided to join Vesta? I'm sure everybody wants to know why Vesta.
Well, the reason I joined Vesta was we were in an escrow with a divorcing couple, and it was very tenuous. One side was very collaborative, and the other side was very adversarial. And the agent on the other end of the deal didn't quite understand how, a divorcing couple selling their home may be a little or a lot different than a normal home sale. So I actually reached out to my divorce attorney, Patricia, and asked her if, what would she suggest to maybe get in front of more people who are going through a divorce, who do have real estate to sell or to handle. And she was one of the Vesta members here locally, and she suggested I do some research. And after a bunch of research and realizing that it's such a great group of people and professionals to have in your corner to help you navigate a really difficult time, I decided to join myself.
I love being a part of Vesta and being a part of, a mediator on Vesta. I joined Vesta back in 2019, and my practice has just transformed because I have all these resources that I can provide to my clients. I know, Josh, you and I knew each other from your own divorce, and how much better an experience do you think it would have been if we had all the resources of Vesta at that time, way back when I was working with you?
I think my divorce would have been I would have been much more calm, knowing that there are resources in terms of if you need a divorce coach, or if you needed, a professional who handles money. So like someone, all those different things you don't really think about. I mean, I remember filling out the paperwork and listing watches and couches and cars and guessing, the value of all of these items to list in the divorce. And had I had a financial planner involved, or maybe a divorce coach involved, you did great, but there, you're the law part. So there's only so much that you can do, and you did fantastic. But these other professionals probably would have kept me a little more calm and a little less stressed out, knowing that this happens every day, and this is their job. They're professionals in helping people manage and navigate a divorce to keep them somewhat sane during the process.
I think one of the greatest values that Vesta has to offer is that each professional is really great at their practice. So I'm really great as a mediator and a collaborative attorney. And then we have Josh, who knows the real estate. He's really great at advising people on real estate and working with someone who knows how to handle divorce mortgages and refinances, or a CDFA that can guide people on the property, or in cases where you need a litigator, having that litigator and having everybody know how to work as a team. And most importantly, making sure that we have the emotions covered. Having that divorce coach can save thousands. And so for me, what I love working on the Vesta team and working with professionals like Josh here is that it really saves my clients money. And how do you see yourself, Josh, saving spouses money when they're looking at selling a home, or maybe they're buying a home, or how do you work with their divorce attorneys to save them money? Everybody wants to know, how do I not spend all my money in my divorce?
Well, I'm going to actually compare. I used to be in healthcare, and so we'd have a multidisciplinary team meeting every day about, every patient. We'd have therapists, internal medicine, we would have endocrinologists, we would have nurses, and every discipline would chime in on what is the best course of action for that patient to get better the fastest. And I think that's what Vesta is for a divorcing couple. It's a multidisciplinary team who can, with obviously the approval of the client, to collaborate with each other, talking to the certified divorce financial planner and asking them, how much house can this person afford? And okay, we're going to lean on the realtor and the mortgage broker that they can afford this much house. So let's find them a house that meets their needs and can kind of keep them in a similar lifestyle. One of the things that since I didn't have a mortgage broker when I was getting divorced, I just kicked that can down the road. And I think you wrote my divorce. I had 4 years to refinance, and the verbiage was very tight that if I ever missed a payment, became insolvent, that would trigger a sale, an event to sell it, so that, my ex-spouse who was still on the mortgage, and we had to get them to agree to be, to give us 4 years, but it would have been easier to just refinance and be done with that from day one. I just no, we're going to kick that down the road and we're just going to handle the house for now. So having the mortgage broker, the real estate agent, the CDFA, the mediator or litigator, having all those components and in one place saves visits to your office, because your services, because you're so skilled, are not free. So any dispute, we're disputing now. I remember I wanted these shoes back. So bad. And it would have probably cost me $2,000 to get these darn shoes back when they're only worth $500. So those things, like, you got to pick your battles, because you're going to fight over something that's not worth very much. And you're going to end up paying legal fees and time and energy when you just forget about it. Forget about that car or that couch or that piece of jewelry, because you're going to spend more in fees trying to get it back.
I always say, don't spend $10,000 on $1,000 problem.
Yeah.
And what I love working with Vesta is, I used to have to, when I was doing these disclosures for people, I would be on Zillow trying to fill out the financial disclosures, or in mediation cases, I'm going to look on Zillow. Let's see what the estimated value of the house is. And I'm going to print this off Zillow. And this is going to be our starting point from negotiation. I think a lot of family law attorneys, as they're working with their clients on that initial financial disclosures, are looking at places like Zillow or I can't remember the Redfin or
Realtor.
Yeah, all of those. So Josh, can you tell me the dangers of why attorneys should not be going on Zillow and what alternatives that they have? And also, mind you, our clients are paying me to look up these properties on Zillow. So you're looking at attorney rate or even my paralegal rate. So can you tell me what is a better option and what should people be doing?
That's a really good question, Patricia, in terms of what's the best option to get the home's present value. It's called a broker price opinion, and stepping in as that piece of the puzzle, you are now saying to the attorney, to the client, to the judge, if it goes that far, you've done your due diligence. So you've looked at the house, you've walked through the house, it's a remodeled kitchen, they have wood floors, there's no carpet anywhere, they redid the landscaping, they added the pool, or none of that's been done since the home's been built. And that can sway the price of the house by 20-30% because it has a lot of improvements, or you have to know the area. In LA, 2 blocks can mean 20%. Like, you want to be on the south side of Melrose and you want to be east of Highland and you want to be west. So like, there's parameters. So as blocks go block by block, houses change, fluctuate dramatically. And Zillow oftentimes doesn't take account for that. If you're a block away from a really bad neighborhood and something just not a bad neighborhood, but a lesser neighborhood, and something just sold in that lesser neighborhood, it's going to try to push that price per square foot on the home that you own. Whereas if you had a professional do a written broker's price opinion, which also includes things that have sold in the last 6 months, so you're going to include that in your broker price opinion, how you came upon your estimate. And you're going to look at pictures of the other house that sold to see what the condition was compared to the subject property. And it could mean, if it's in LA, $1.5 million house, one party could be getting $100,000 to $200,000 more than they should because someone looked at Zillow. So it's very, it takes a professional to know the neighborhood, to know the house, to kind of estimate what improvements would at market value be worth over and above the average house in that area. So there's so many pieces to the puzzle, and you really do need, no one should ever trust me to write someone's divorce. Like that's like Patricia's job. But I think because of the Zillows of the world, people think those estimates, and sometimes they are fairly correct, but sometimes there's a huge variance up or down with what the number spits out.
So when somebody is wanting to either purchase their spouse out or have their spouse buy them out, in order to make sure that you are having a sound judgment and that that the spouse is adequately compensated, it's really best not to use Zillow. Is that correct?
Yes, it's best not to use Zillow, Patricia, when someone is trying to value their marital home and buy the other party out, or what they're going to do after the divorce happens.
Great. So what are your top 5 tips that you have for people who are divorcing and they want to either sell their home, keep their home? What are the things that they should consider before making that decision?
First and foremost, I think, is, can I afford this home with whatever my income will be once I'm divorced, whether that's spousal support, whether that's income, but now maybe less income because they're getting divorced. So can I afford it? Can I get a mortgage and a bank to agree that I can afford it? Is there anything in the home that is of sentimental value that maybe you can agree upon with the spouse that's not keeping the home? Like, hey, I'll give you the furniture if I get to keep the house. Like, some people might value something more than the other. Be very frugal as you're going through the divorce, because likely if it's a home that you guys both had to say that you're both buy together, your finances have changed. So never make any, some divorcing couples, I'm going to get you back, I'm going to go shopping down at Chanel or go buy a new car. I've wanted this Porsche for years, and now that you're leaving me, I'm going to get it. That'll all affect your availability of assets and income to be able to afford the house. And the 5th one is, try to be amicable about it, because the more contentious it is, the more money you're paying the Patricias and the Teds of the world. And that's going to decrease the amount of home you can afford, because you're going to have to pay if it's contentious.
So I know for me, I long after my divorce was done, I got my own home. My house that I have, I've been the only person on title. It's way smaller, but my needs are less, my kids are grown and all of that. And when working with people that do decide not to keep the marital home and to get their own home, what are the things that they should look for in finding their own space? So we've sold them the big marital house. Now they're saying, Josh, I'm going to take my half of the money and find my new home. What should they look for?
One, neighborhood. Where are they comfortable? What do they know? Do they want to be in the same neighborhood if maybe their ex-spouse is going to be in that neighborhood? Do they want to be by water? Do they where are they going to be comfortable and enjoy being? And that goes to many, maybe the style of home wasn't exactly what they wanted. Now they can get the exact style they wanted. The size of the home, Do they want a condo? Do they need a yard if they have a yard? Because oftentimes if it's a marital home, maybe kids grew up there, they may have a pool and a yard and maintenance. Like, what is the maintenance going to be if I get a single family and I now only have half of the money I used to have? Or if it's scaled down, like, can I find a nice condo that feels like a home, but I don't have maintenance? Like, maybe one spouse is better at chores, handyman work, like things that break, yard work, and you're not good at any of that. Maybe you don't need a single family, maybe a condo is best. Or I've always wanted to live in Orange County because now I'm in LA and I grew up in Orange County. Like, let me go see if there's any areas that fit my needs down there. So first and foremost, where are you going to be comfortable, and what can you afford, and what can you handle in terms of maintenance? Because homes have maintenance, whether it's a condo or a single family. Everything has maintenance. And so if you don't like certain things, if you don't like cooking and your spouse wanted the 36-inch Viking professional range, but you're a TV dinner type of person, maybe you don't need this chef's kitchen. Maybe you would rather have a nicer TV and media room, stuff like that. Like, what did you enjoy most about your home, your marital home, and pick and choose what you love most about it and rank them and find something that has just what you really wanted.
So Josh, I know in a lot of my cases, when I'm doing mediations, sometimes the spouse that is not working wants to be able to be the one to purchase their spouse out. Maybe there's enough assets there. How can that happen? How do you work in those situations?
Well, I mean, that's why you have to have so if the hold on, let me start over again. Patricia, that's a great question. If the non-income producing spouse or the lesser income producing spouse is being bought out of the marital home, as long as you have the right team behind you, whether it's a litigator, a mediating attorney, a mortgage broker, and a real estate agent, as well as your financial advisor, you should be able to, the numbers should work that the lower income producing spouse can buy a new home. Just because you're not going to work per se and the paycheck's not coming directly to you, in the divorce, you should be likely getting some sort of spousal support, and that does count as income to a mortgage broker to be able to buy a home. And if you're being purchased or bought out of the marital home, you should likely, hopefully, have some sort of down payment. And so banks are just as likely to lend to you as they are to anyone else, as long as you can show that you produce enough income to purchase that home. And if it's important, and it has to be important, some people don't find it important to own a home, so they're fine with renting. But if it's important to you and you want to own a home, and your team set it up in a way that you can show that you can afford that home, you're just as likely to own a home as anyone else.
This is where I really see the value of working with professionals that know the divorce arena. I've had cases where my client is receiving spousal support, and it also says in the divorce judgment that they're going to be buying their spouse out of the home. And do you know what amount of time you need to show that you've been receiving spousal support in order to obtain either a new home or to be able to qualify for, let's say, refinancing even your existing home?
Well, Patricia, that's a really good question on how long you need to receive support to be able to prove to a bank that you can actually afford a home. And I think it depends on every bank's different, every mortgage broker's different. If it's in your final judgment that you are set to get X amount of dollars for X amount of time, as long as it's 2 years, as long as you're going to get it for the next 2 years, they'll generally approve you on that number. So if it's spousal support, there usually is some, child support, there's an end to it, but spousal support, depending on the way it's structured, sometimes can be for long periods of time. As long as that's in the divorce documents and you have a CDFA who's saying this will be coming for X amount of years, banks will count that as income. So I think it's more about how much how much longer in the future you'll be receiving it, and less about how long you have been receiving it for. We have a case or a couple who they're in the process of divorce, but their attorneys and their team worked it out that, the income producing spouse is paying for the non-income producing spouse's home. And she bought a home before he did. And it wasn't a small home, but she had, they had the right team in place, and they were working collaboratively. It was not a contentious, were they happy to be divorcing? No, but they knew that as long as they worked together, then everything works out better for them and it's less expensive.
Yeah. I find that you have a lot more flexibility when you're coming to agreements.
Mm-hmm.
In a divorce case, I always tell my clients, you can agree to anything as long as both spouses agree to it. And we can put it into a document. If both spouses sign off, both spouses agree to it, a judge will sign off. They want to see you settle. They want to see people settle. Now, judges are only going to make certain orders. So in California, we're a community property state. If you can't agree on who keeps the home, more often than not, the judge is going to say, okay, well, you're going to sell it, or first person that's able to come up with the funding will keep it. And there's a lot less flexibility, I find, in litigation cases. So even if you're arguing over, let's say, child custody or spousal support or things like that, I find that there's benefits in settling at least some of the property issues.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are benefits of working together collaboratively. For the house that I live in now, for example, it was a contentious divorce. One of the spouses had already hired his friend as an agent. The friend came in and painted the house, and the other spouse said, hold on, I never agreed to this. That's your friend. So then they had that. Now they both have their attorneys, and then they had an arbitrator in the middle who picked the actual real estate agent. And every piece of paper had to go through the attorneys. And once the attorneys agreed, had to go to the arbitrator to say, okay, now this is what we're moving forward with. So it took probably twice as long because one of the spouses wouldn't agree. So they'd have to go back to the drawing board. And again, no one was living here. They were so contentious that the one spouse said it's unfair if the other spouse lives here. So they both didn't live here. So now it's a house sitting empty when two parties are paying rent. So they were very contentious. And at the end of the day, they probably paid their attorneys 15 to 20 more hours each just to sell the house, instead of saying, well, let's at least work collaboratively here. We can save 40 hours collectively of paying an attorney, which that's not, as an inexpensive feat, 40 hours with attorney's fees.
You must really love your house.
I
have to say, I'm not sure if when I was buying my house, if it was that much of a hassle to be able to go through and get this sale done. I don't know if I would have hung in there.
Oh, I love this house. Has a lot of character, and looking at the inspection report, I must have been crazy, because another thing to think about is when a couple's divorcing and it's contentious, there's going to be deferred maintenance. No one's fixing anything. The spouse making the money isn't going to be fixing things in the house that they're no longer going to be owning. So the oven didn't work, the dishwasher didn't work, the garbage disposal didn't work, the pool pump didn't work, the heater didn't work, the AC, nothing worked. But I had to have this house, and I've never, if you have a professional guiding you and saying, this will always appreciate, this is an appreciating asset, and this is a kind of a house in a neighborhood that's never going to have trouble selling. I was in it. To this day, the roof leaked 1 month after close of escrow. And I still have no regrets about buying this house. I wanted this house.
So I want to know, I'm sure we all want to know, Josh, do you believe that you got a better deal on the property that you were buying because the spouses were unable to work together because they didn't have that skilled realtor? If you were working with the couple that was selling as their divorce realtor, do you think that you would have been able to get them more money?
I would have gotten them on the same page, and I would have explained to them not every buyer is going to put up with this, because everything takes longer. The acceptance of the offer, the down, so I would have said you should get on the same page because your life is going to be easier and you're going to get more money. And some, some tricks that some attorney, if there's an attorney involved, often whether it's a trust, a probate, a divorce, they'll suggest that the agent price it low because they just want it off their hands. They want to close that chapter. So the contentiousness leads to lower prices, but it ended up, I ended up paying well over ask at a time period where people weren't paying over ask because everyone wanted this house. So it depends on the house. If it's a tract house in a cookie cutter neighborhood, they're going to the next house and they're not going to deal with that. In LA, every house is different. And so this one was just very unique. But would I have probably gotten more? Probably, because I would have probably gotten them on the same page.
And when we're talking about issues like deferred maintenance or improvements, is it better for the couple to agree, hey, let's get some of these done? Like, does it make a difference? I always hear about when I bought my house, they had done new painting. I had all new carpets. Somebody definitely staged it. Like the furniture looked great. And I walked in the door to this house and it was like, I want to live here. I could see myself living here. And it didn't hurt that they painted it all the same colors I would have picked.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a divorcing couple? Is it better for them to come to agreement to get the work done or just to throw it up for sale?
For a divorcing couple, to do deferred maintenance on a house that they're going to sell, it depends on what it is. As I mentioned, the first agent who wasn't able to actually sell the house because it was the one spouse's friend had already painted it. They already got it painted. I definitely suggest staging because you only have one chance to make a first impression. So when you open that door, it needs to look amazing. Things like the roof and the dishwasher, the garbage disposal. If it's quick and easy, do it. A roof's going to take a long time. So now you're going to be possibly 2 to 3 weeks behind. And that's 2 to 3 weeks where if you're contentious or you can't stand the person, but you're trying to be friendly, like it's worth it to just sell it as is. And just to list it as no credits. There'll be no credits given. So don't ask for them because if the price is right, you're going to do it at the end and usually disclose in the private remarks that the couple is divorcing or this is part of a divorce. So the other agents, if they're skilled, they'll know like this looks really pretty and it can be amazing, but we're not doing any work because they just want to get this done. So staging, I think, is always a must. Painting, if you can, get it done quickly, and then maybe fresh flowers in the planter boxes, make sure the yard looks somewhat decent. If you have a pool, make sure it's clean. But the stuff that's going to take a long time, that's really costly, can't put that into the price and just list it.
And then what's your favorite part about working with divorcing spouses? Like, I know you joined Vesta so that you could work with a lot of people who are getting divorced. That's part of what we do here in Vesta. What's your favorite part?
My favorite part with working with divorcing couples through Vesta is that aha moment where they're like, oh, this can be done and it can be done in an amicable way. And we just sold your house in 3 weeks and you're now getting to just move on with your life. You're done with that part, likely the largest asset of the marriage sometimes is the house. Now you can move on to start living your life separately. And that usually makes people happy. They're done with this part and they can start to move on. And the house is generally the hardest part to unwind in a timely and amicable manner.
I find that so many people have really that, one, your house is going to be your biggest asset, maybe retirement, but also with when you're looking at your divorce team, Josh, you're the only member on our divorce team that's actually going to be entering where this couple lived together as a family. As their mediator, we're not doing mediation sessions in their house, so there's a lot of that emotional attachment and opening up and bringing you into their home, like the place where all those memories are made. And so if they have made that difficult decision that they've got to sell, or considering it, what are some tools that people can use what are some tools that people can use to get through that process, to be able to work it out with you, to come up with that resolution?
So some of the tools to unwinding the very emotional aspect of selling their house, or you have to be very sensitive to both parties, because a lot of times there's one party that is initiating the divorce and another party that's begrudgingly going along with it. For example, the house that we were selling when I called you, the one party that did not want the divorce was living in the guest house. So every time we had a showing, he would have a fit. And I just would calmly, I understand it's annoying. I understand it's invasive. And, eventually he decided to be my friend. But at the beginning, you have to, they're somewhat both clients are yours, and you have to be sensitive to their emotions as they're going through this. So I'd say that's the biggest part, is being sensitive to the emotional state that both parties are in. Because we had one party saying, every Friday we're dropping the price 50 grand, and the other party saying, I'm not leaving. So to to emotionally understand where they are and meet them where they are. Don't try to bulldoze your way through the party that's not agreeable. And then answer any questions. Are there any questions you have about the process? How can I best serve you while we're getting through the sale of your home? What is the most important thing for the sale for you? Like maybe one party is the one who's hired you, but the other party's agreed to use you. Let them know, like, what do you have questions about? So just be available to them and try to let them know that you're technically working for both of them. And this all has to work for everyone, to get through it. And that usually diffuses the situation. Is one party will generally bring you in, but the other party, you should let them know that you're also looking out for their best interests as well. And that usually puts them on your side and diffuses it. So try to be Switzerland, try to be neutral. Okay.
So Josh, why should people come and attend our Vesta webinars? What value do you think our webinars have for spouses that are going through a divorce or thinking about a divorce?
I think people should at least come to a webinar to see what we're all about, because they'll realize they're not alone. I think on our last webinar, one of the attendees who was typing in questions thanked us for taking the time to kind of go over every professional that's in the group and how we can help them get through the process. And I think her exact words were, I didn't even think I had a plan or I had hope before this. And now I realize like I can get through this. And I think, when I went through my divorce, I didn't know the path forward. And luckily a friend referred me to you. But now you're in a group of however many attendees there are that day who are in the same position, and Vesta allows you to utilize whatever tools you want. You don't have to use every professional. You can pick and choose who you want to use, but the resources are there for someone who knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing to help you get through it in the easiest and most calm way.
I think everyone who's going through a divorce wants to know the answer to the main question is, will I be okay? And sometimes it's hard to see the sun through the storm. And I feel like working with professionals such as Josh, such as the rest of our team members in Vesta, I really believe, we're that sunshine through the storm. Josh and I both have our beach pictures up today. So I want to thank everybody who's watching today. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, feel free, reach out to Josh, reach out to me, come to one of our webinars. We're happy to answer your questions.
And thanks for having me today, Patricia.